the Department of Justice has formerly sued Apple Inc. over monopolization stuff.
Cool.
And there's a whole big old 88-page court filing that I read that was a little hard to read, but also it was kind of written in like a story way, which was interesting. Like it literally starts off with this. Okay, the way this filing starts off is a story.
Once upon a time in a land far away.
Kind of. It's retelling this Amazon Kindle ad about how this person was like using the Kindle app on their iPhone and then grabs an Android phone and continues reading the Kindle app on their Android phone. And there's an email from an Apple person, which stop sending emails that are incriminating, guys. Like, just stop doing this. Who says, look at this ad. You can easily switch to reading your Kindle on an Android phone. That's a bad thing. That's a terrible thing. And it's like, why? You know? So they're clearly saying we want to create these gates. This is literally how the filing opens, to kind of paint this picture of how Apple is trying to keep you in their ecosystem.
That's compelling.
Yeah.
Good story. It's like a music video.
No, it kind of is. Yeah. No, and it tells multiple stories like this.
Despacito started this way.
Yeah. But it centers around Apple building a dominant iPhone ecosystem and intentionally stifling competitors' ability to compete and also locking in users, things we all know that Apple just does. It also complains about shifting restrictions and rules with the App Store. And then also it makes all of these allegories to when they broke up Microsoft. Well, they didn't break up Microsoft, but when they sued Microsoft way back when. And they say that Apple only grew to the behemoth that they are today because of that lawsuit. Effectively, what was happening at the time is Microsoft was making QuickTime not work correctly on Windows computers, which had like 97% of the market at the time. And they had apparently actually intentionally written code into Windows computers that would make QuickTime like break and just not work. Which
That
basically
actually-
didn't... Yeah.
I feel like I experienced this.
You probably did.
You didn't do Windows Media Player with the cool...
No, I had
Like,
that.
well, you
and
had to, I guess.
definitely stared at that for a while. But I think QuickTime was one of the early screen recorders, and it was not good
Yeah.
on Windows.
And iTunes is like founded in QuickTime. So the way that the Department of Justice painted this was only because we sued Microsoft and forced them to allow Apple to create applications on your platform that work correctly, was Apple able to launch iTunes and therefore launch the iPod, which they say is the whole reason that Apple like grew to the behemoth that they are today. I'm sure that's a reason. I would say the Mac is probably a more like valuable product for them, but the iPod obviously did sort of start a whole thing for them. And it allowed them to be a platform, you know.
It definitely did. But could you argue that Mac got more popular because they went after Microsoft and hurt Microsoft in some way,
Yeah,
which had
totally.
such market share? So like,
Yeah.
even still, so the Department of Justice created Apple is what they're getting at.
Yeah, that's what
The
they're
US
saying. Yeah, which is funny. Anyway, there are 5 primary complaints in this document, and I figure that we go through all of them and just kind of discuss like if they're valid or not, because there's a lot of controversial takes in this filing. There's a lot of things that I would say like, I kind of see what you're saying, but I feel like you're reaching in order to just break up Apple, you know?
yeah, I would say like before we get into these,
Yeah.
what would a success look like for the DOJ for suing Apple? Because breaking up Apple doesn't seem
You're not gonna break 'em
possible,
up,
but like, what do they actually want to accomplish here?
I think that, I mean, there's 5 different categories, and I would assume that it's like winning on all 5 of these categories.
And if they win, then they change Apple's behavior in some way.
Yeah, basically. Changing their behavior, I think is what they're trying to do.
Okay.
Okay. So let's just go through the 5 categories in order.
Okay.
The number 1 category that the Department of Justice says Apple is anti-competitive for is not allowing super apps, which I don't really understand this complaint very much because we just don't really have super apps in the United States.
What is a super app?
So we don't, but in China, there's this
Yes,
app called
WeChat.
WeChat, which is a super app. And the argument is that Apple does things like delay updates to WeChat and things like that, that make it just more difficult to have that on the App Store.
So WeChat is on the App Store, which is why I find it confusing. A super app, by the way, is like, it's an app that you can do a ton of different things in. So in China, there's the super app is called WeChat, and you can pay your taxes in WeChat. You can order a taxi in WeChat.
You can make a dentist appointment, and then when you get to your dentist's office, you sign in, you check in with WeChat, and then pay with WeChat.
You pay with WeChat. It's like it's everything. And so I think the Department of Justice's reasoning here is, if you have a single app that allows you to do anything and it's not about the hardware at all, you could easily move to an Android phone, because as long as you have this app that has all these services on it that are interoperable, depending on and it doesn't matter what hardware you're using, then it would be a lot easier for people to move to Android phones.
And they're saying Apple's not allowing that?
Yes, which I don't really understand.
I think it's because even though the app is on the App Store, it's a cut down version of the full mobile app. It doesn't have full functionality. So like, I'm looking at the reviews right now in the App Store, and one of the reviews is a 3-star review, and it says, still very annoying to have to use the mobile version to get the full system to work at all.
The mobile
so
version?
like I'm assuming like mobile in browser version or
Something like that. Like all these
it's not
different
just the app.
Yeah, all these different features that WeChat has built in, you get a sliced down mobile version in Apple's app. Versus if you have an Android phone, you just get the full app and the full experience.
Interesting. Yeah. I would also guess that Apple has a lot of restrictions on what apps are allowed to do.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it comes
Yeah.
down to.
Something else that Apple has been specifically like trying to block is like having too many microservices within an app, because then they have to review everything that the app can do. Right? Their main complaint around not allowing game streaming services, which they now do, which is strange that the game streaming thing is a complaint, because they now allow game streaming services. Their main reason that they didn't allow game streaming services for a long period of time is because they were saying, we'd have to review every single game that's on the service to make sure that it's not harmful to the user. And every time there's an update to any of the games on a game streaming service, we'd have to review every single update to every single title on a game streaming service. The Department of Justice says that the reason that they didn't allow that was that you could use any hardware. There's an email from an Apple person that says, here's a problem. If a user goes to a garage sale and pays $5 for an Android phone and everything is cloud-based, they don't need high-end hardware, and then they don't even need an iPhone. That's an issue. We should deal with that.
Yeah. This is coming back again to, like, I'm sure with each one of these complaints, Apple has a public-facing reason and a real reason.
Right.
And I feel like we're going to hear a lot in the public of what Apple will say is the reason, but we also know that they clearly do not want the walls of the garden to get any smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The juiciest part of this entire thing is going to be discovery, where the Department of Justice gets to go through all of their emails, and we get to find out
the real reasons.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. So what do you guys think about this super app thing?
I think it's right in line. So the reason that Apple will say is this super app thing, it does too many things, it takes too long to review, and it is not something that we want in our store. But the real reason that's also true is if someone uses all of the features of this super app to do everything and doesn't need anything else about the iPhone, then they can easily switch to another phone.
Right.
So theoretically, that's one of the reasons that they should change and allow super apps. I get it.
Which is kind of like the Fediverse, just saying.
It is also kind of weird that Apple's like, well, we have to look over all of these different things, and like, come on, that's a lot of stuff. But it's like, you own an insane amount of market share. You have
can't afford
plenty
to
of
look at all
resources.
that.
Like, it's a little weird to be like, come on, we can't do all. You can't expect us to do all of that. We're just like the number one company.
No, but you can't expect the game stores to even submit all of that. Like on the Xbox cloud gaming thing, it's like there's thousands of titles.
Right.
You know? Like how is that process even going to work?
Yeah. In January of this year, Apple actually started allowing game streaming.
Yeah.
So this complaint is kind of moot now. And it's kind of weird that it's in the filing at all, but you know, they probably finished it before January.
Yeah, the government doesn't work quickly.
Yeah.
By any,
Also, Netflix exists. Does someone at Apple sit down and watch every movie?
Well, no, because a movie is not a game.
How's that any different?
Dude, if you want to know what constitutes a game, go watch the Epic versus Apple.
No,
trial.
I get
it's
that.
still
I mean,
content that
yeah,
shows
exactly.
up on
It's still
the-
content.
Yeah.
But I think he's saying like, but games can be like more harmful with like microtransactions
Yeah, because think about all
and
the-
things that are
More
controlling
content?
your phone and stuff for controls and stuff.
The
And so-
gutters of Steam too have some things that like barely
Yeah.
should never be seen by human eyes.
Think about the games that are on the like Google Play Store that actually are just malware. You know, that gets caught
I
like
do think there's a difference.
multiple times a month. They're like, oh, this game was malware. We had to take it down. You know, so okay, so we sort of went through the game streaming one as well as the super app one. The third one is messaging, and there was some stuff that I learned here that I didn't actually know. Like Apple doesn't allow third-party apps to send SMS messages. So the only way that you can send an SMS on an iPhone is through the Messages app,
Okay, yeah, that's pretty straightforward.
which is pretty straightforward.
And that's
I-
a super easy one to have a public and a private the public thing is SMS super insecure.
yeah.
We don't want to just let any app go out sending SMS messages or receiving insecure messages. But obviously, if you allow third-party apps to send and receive SMS, then people won't use Apple's app to send and receive SMS.
Right. Think about getting like two-factor authentication codes. Anytime you get one, comes through the Messages app. The more your Messages app shows up in front of your face, the more you're just going to start using it.
Yeah.
What's their reasoning for for only having messages to do SMS? It's just like
Apple
privacy.
hasn't replied to
They haven't replied. Okay.
I would guess that it's privacy, but the irony, the intense irony is then then use the open secure standard.
RCS,
Use
maybe.
RCS.
Yeah.
Which they did say they were going to use, but we still don't know what the implementation of that's going to be. All of these things. Clock's ticking.
That's this year it's supposed to happen.
Yeah, but that's
right?
such a long period
This
of time.
year.
It was like in
Hello,
was
December
it in January that they mentioned? No,
No, it was last year. when
last year, and they said it would happen
Yeah.
in 2024.
Or like December 26th.
I hope that happens at WWDC. But
Merry Christmas. Here's RCS.
yeah. Just like they did with the CarPlay stuff in the
Yeah.
Forest, where they're like,
Last
"Oh, we
time.
forgot.
Didn't
We promised this."
Okay, fine.
Yeah. So that's a big thing. And then obviously they talk about, the green bubble, blue bubble fiasco and just the insane amount of high percentage of teenagers who are planning to buy an iPhone specifically for that reason.
It is so high.
In the United States, we understand
Yes,
WhatsApp exists.
we-
Please do
Bro.
not comment, just use WhatsApp.
But also, like, every time I read the stats, I'm like, damn.
Yeah. And it just
Wow.
gets higher and higher and higher. Every
It's
year.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the other things was that they do not allow the Apple Watch to work on Android phones, and they make the functionality of other smartwatches way harder or way worse. So an example of this is that on the Apple Watch, you can respond to messages, with the keyboard or with your voice or all this stuff. You can interact with notifications, and it can pull all that kind of stuff. If you use an iPhone and you have a smartwatch, you can't get a notification and pull up the app on your smartwatch.
Yeah.
You can't respond to a message on your smartwatch if it's connected to an iPhone. Correct, Adam?
Wait, I
think so.
Say that again. If you have an iPhone, or if you
No,
don't
if you
have-
don't have an iPhone.
Yes.
Or sorry, if you have an
you have-
iPhone and you have a non-Apple smartwatch,
Then it's
it's
like
highly
nerfed.
deprecated.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is one of the only ones where I feel like I kind of get Apple's perspective. Not even perspective. I just feel like competitively, they're like, look, we made this phone and we made this watch and we made our phone work with our watch. If you're not one of those, tough. Like, obviously, it would be nice if you could force Apple to make their phone more compatible with other people's stuff, but it's like, who cares? Like, you don't have to actually, that's not actually
I
necessary.
think the idea is that they have such dominant market share in the United States
Right.
that they're abusing their market share to make everything worse to keep people using their products, and which again is like in their right to do, kind of, but also I think the Department of Justice just cares about promoting competition and without taking action to allow other people to use other devices, the percentage of people on iPhones and Apple Watches is just going to go up and up and up.
Yeah, this is one of those complaints I think that only works because of their dominance.
Yes.
Because you wouldn't even really care if there was another small smartwatch and a small smartphone and they only work with each other.
Yeah.
Fine, whatever. Go in the corner and do your thing.
yeah.
I totally agree with that part. I think I don't know if I agree, or no, I don't agree with Apple saying like, we built this phone, we built this watch, put them together. Because there are just other watches that fill specific niches better. Like Garmin is so good at so many things that it's been doing for so long. And to just like take away some basic functionality of what makes it a smartwatch, then there are plenty of people who have iPhones that probably want a Garmin watch because of maybe the like way better GPS or ruggedness of it versus
100%.
I know they did Apple Watch Ultra,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like that feels really shitty.
The phrasing is interesting because if you say take away, it's almost like this was out there and they like took it away, but they never had to enable it ever in the first place.
They never had to enable
You know?
it ever, but like it's,
That's what their argument.
Yeah.
I get it,
Yeah,
but
that's a
I
shit
also
argument.
I agree with Andrew though, because like there's ways to differentiate your product based on a compelling feature that users want. Like
100%.
the Apple Watch has Siri. I miss that every day that I've been using a Garmin. It's actually useful on the Apple Watch. Just setting timers, doing random things, awesome.
Yeah.
So the fact that I have a Garmin and it doesn't have Siri, that's what I get. I don't have an Apple Watch. But I can't turn off certain notifications from apps
Right.
because I have a Garmin.
Yeah, it would
That
be
is dumb.
There's a lot of dumb. I would say it would be a much stronger argument for the features of the Apple Watch if all watches could have the same access. Then it would be like, all right, we're literally that's the whole point of this whole lawsuit. But then we would literally just be buying the watch based on which one has the features we like. And some people would pick the Apple Watch, some people would pick the Garmin, some people would pick this and that or whatever. But Apple feels this extra need on top to be like, well, we don't have to make ours work with others, so we just won't. And
But
now there's only one choice of an actually full-featured smartwatch for the iPhone.
Right.
By the logic of Apple made their thing that can only work with their product, it's like, okay, so all other smartwatches now can't tell time.
No, they can all do stuff on their own. They just don't have the plugs, the hooks into the iPhone to take advantage of the features that come from being connected to an
But
iPhone.
also there's basic features they
Yeah,
can
it sounds
do.
like some
like
pretty
Adam,
basic-
explain the notifications thing.
So like if I'm on Android and I have a Garmin watch, and this actually happened a couple weeks ago because I walked into the office and I went up to Andrew and I was like, Andrew, can you help me figure out this Garmin thing? Because I can't figure it out. And we pulled up our phones next to each other and I was on iOS, he was on Android. And I followed him step by step in the settings to turn off certain app notifications. And on Android, it gives you a list of all the apps. I could turn off WhatsApp. I could keep on SMS text messaging. I could turn off Instagram. I could keep on Threads. On iOS, it's all or nothing. I can only get notifications on my watch or I can't get notifications on my watch. So it's like little things like that where it's like just annoying.
Insane.
My only question on that is, are we sure that's not Garmin making that decision, or
No, that's on
that's
every
that's
smartwatch.
an iOS
that's
thing?
Android allows it and iPhone doesn't.
And
allow
on your Apple Watch, you can
You can
choose
turn
which
off individual
notifications.
notifications. Yes.
That would drive me insane.
Yes.
Dude,
It
I
drove
literally
me
would.
crazy.
I would not use a Garmin
That's
watch
the
if I
thing.
had an iPhone.
That's
Exactly.
the thing. The
Yeah.
complaint is not that it's like that they can't really do it. It's that they're so big that it's the only viable option in the market, really.
It's also just wild because like Apple is good enough at giving itself differentiating features that like I just think will always work better because you're in the same ecosystem. Why take the extra step?
Because I think it's because if you just do these little things that make it just like, that's annoying. That's annoying.
That's
And
the whole headphones thing.
Yeah.
That's like why AirPods are so dominant. It's not like AirPods are the best headphones ever, but there are like 2 or 3 magical features that work perfectly with the iPhone
Yes.
that are just the reason people buy it.
Question: the W2 chip, right?
The
That's what
chip,
it has.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that made by Apple?
Yeah.
But so that's like
H2, I think.
is it H2 now?
Wait, is it W2 right?
I thought it was
it's both.
W2 and
I think it started as W because it was the same chip from the watch, but they changed it to H. I
okay, so
believe.
we'll just call it the chip that connects them. I think that's an example of actually they made that chip, they made that good. It's something specific. That is something that just is a feature that is better, but like or Jaybird's not going to have that. Jaybird can still connect, but rather than just like taking away an easy way to connect from Jaybird, they're
Right.
giving you something extra. I think that's fine, and that makes AirPods great. But like to be like, hey, your Garmin watch can't differentiate
Yeah, I guess 'cause
notifications is like,
Yeah, there's a difference
Come on,
between
that's-
adding features on top that is like this works. There's additional magic that happens with Apple products and services versus here's a basic feature that you just can't do if you're connected to something else.
Yeah, I guess headphones are more one-dimensional, where it's like all you really do is, does the audio go to the phone and back?
Pairing.
Great. Does it have a mic? Does it pair? Great. But with a smartwatch, there's 15 or 20 features. So
It's
it
like a
feels
phone.
much more obvious when 12 of them are nuked.
And the weird thing too is that this is all happening to Apple customers already. You already have an iPhone, and they're punishing you for not buying their other product. It's not like, oh, you have an iPhone? Well, then sure, go buy a Garmin because you're already an iPhone user. It's like, no, you bought a Garmin, now you're going to pay because you didn't buy the Apple Watch.
Yeah. And their other complaint is that the Apple Watch is pretty expensive. And because it only works with the iPhone, if you buy an Apple Watch, you're less incentivized to move to an Android phone because then you just have to throw your Apple Watch away.
That's an interesting perspective because theoretically, you could switch to an Android phone and then get all of the features that you're talking about that you want from the watch, right? You could get all the specific notifications.
He's back to the Garmin thing.
Oh, the Garmin.
Yeah,
Saying,
like you have an iPhone and you see the Garmin. You want all the features that you get from Android, so you theoretically can switch to Android and Garmin.
Right.
And I guess their theory is the
gotta buy
friction
another
of
watch,
that.
though.
No, you have the Garmin already.
Oh.
Well, I mean, okay, so you have an iPhone, you bought the Garmin, the features don't work. You can switch to an Android phone on the spot, but that friction is enough that people don't do it, and instead they don't get the Garmin, they buy the Apple Watch.
And then the Apple Watch further locks you into the ecosystem because then you bought a $450 watch that only works with your iPhone. So if you decide to switch to an Android phone, your watch is now useless.
Yeah.
And you have to buy, not only are you
That's
throwing
the wall.
away, not only are you throwing away the $400 that you spent, you now have to spend another $300 on a Garmin watch.
But that's different. I'm okay with that because that is them differentiating their thing. Like our watch only works with our phone. And as much as it sucks, I get it. But taking away features after I've already bought the thing, that's where I have the issue with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. I still think the Apple Watch should work with Android phones. I get if it doesn't work as fluidly with it, but like just it should have doesn't work because
The
like
Pixel Watch doesn't work with iPhones. So there's that.
really?
Nobody's mad, though.
does the
But nobody's
Samsung
mad because,
does the Galaxy Watch work with iPhones?
No, it's...
No.
you can use
I know the Galaxy
with all
Watch works
Android
on
phones.
It works
You
better
can?
with Galaxy phones.
Yeah, sure. And again, I'm like,
Which is slippery.
yeah.
That's true.
What are the things it works better with though? Is it's usually because it's just connected to like other Samsung apps with inside
Yeah, I
your
think there's a
Samsung
couple-
phone.
You can also
probably
have
won't have
an
on your
Android phone.
Yeah, like normal. I don't know. I used a Samsung Watch on my Pixel for a year, and it was
Oh,
totally fine.
You can
I liked
use the Galaxy Watch with the iPhone.
I thought there was one that
So
You can use it with an iPhone,
Yeah.
but you can't set it up with an iPhone. So you need to first pair it to an Android phone.
Are you sure?
Set it up. Yeah, I'm on Reddit right now. Then unpair it, then pair it with an iPhone.
Good go.
But in the
just
case
the
of the
setup process.
Pixel Watch not working at all with an iPhone, are we mad because Google
That's
should
dumb.
totally support the iPhone? Or are we like, yeah, it's a
Well-
Google phone and a Google Watch?
This is like the abusing monopoly power question.
Right,
Like,
this
Google
is not a
so
monopoly.
behind that we don't really care. That said, I think we should care because this is how you build monopolies.
But also though, who's restricting the use between them? Is it Google
you
saying
can-
you can't use?
Yeah, it's Google.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's
Google
Google.
does not, because you can build smartwatches that will at least connect and work with the iPhone. Theirs
Okay.
doesn't at all.
And the funny thing is, Google has just been trying to copy Apple's ecosystem play for ever since
Everyone
the Pixel
is,
came
yeah.
out. Yeah, but specifically now they're like,
Sure.
let's build a watch and headphones and like a laptop. Like they're specifically trying to match the ecosystem that Apple has, and they're doing it in a very similar way. Of like the Pixel Watch only works on Android phones. You know, which
Yeah.
Google's has some monopoly claims as well on them.
do.
So
They
yeah,
absolutely do.
they're
Like-
not scotch free.
100%. Yeah. Okay. Now that the watch is a big one. The watch is for sure a big one.
Yeah. Big
Last major complaint is that the access to the NFC chip on iPhones.
Oh, yeah.
You can only use with like Apple Wallet and Apple Pay.
Yeah.
And their complaint, which technically true, is that like if I was a bank, I could theoretically offer my own wallet app that maybe could compete with other banks, because I could say, if you use our wallet app, then we give you special rewards, and then that incentivizes me to move over to Chase or move over to Bank of America or something like that. But because Apple controls the fire hose of Apple Pay, and you can only use the NFC chip with Apple Pay on the iPhone, they don't allow like anybody to do that. The other thing is that they also take a cut of every payment that is made through Apple Pay.
Yeah.
That's not that much different from like using a credit card though, right? Don't credit cards have?
They do, but theoretically as a consumer, you have the option to like give that money to Chase or Bank of America or whatever.
Like on an Android
you're
phone,
saying-
you can use a different wallet app and make a payment and have someone else take a cut.
Yeah.
And I use a different service,
Like
and it'll go
there's-
through NFC and still work.
For
the way
sure.
it's
Like the
expected.
NFC chip works with, it's like there's an API for the NFC chip that you can use as Samsung, or Samsung Pay could use that, or Google Pay could use that. So you have to sort of compete. And I honestly think that that's a reason that Google Pay, one of the many versions of Google Pay that we've had at this
Wallet,
point,
Google Pay.
like 2 versions ago or 1 version ago had this weird reward system going on where like if you use Google Pay more, you would like build up rewards that you could use for like other things. And I don't know. This one's a little weak. I don't think people are going to go out there and be like, yeah, instead of Apple Pay and Apple Wallet, I want to use Bank of America Wallet. Like people aren't going to do that. But still,
But
it's
let
like
them fight for it.
let them
Like,
fight for it.
Give them the chance at making that.
Ultimately, I think this whole claim is just about competition in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Like Apple specifically makes it so that other people can't even compete with them to offer a better deal that would incentivize consumers to go over there. And one note that I forgot about the super app thing was like the big reason why the Chinese Android market is so insane and why there's like 2 Android phones coming out per day in China is because everything is about WeChat. And so people don't really care about the iPhone over there because they're just like, it's an app and I can use whatever hardware I want. And it just makes this incredibly vibrant hardware ecosystem.
It is so different. That's why Xiaomi and Oppo and like so many other OEMs over there are in such fierce competition. It's because they're trying to give you reasons to buy their phone over the other one.
The reason a Naruto phone exists.
Yeah,
is
most people are
because-
just, I'm buying a phone to use WeChat, so I don't really care what's on the phone. But if you can convince me, I'm open to listening. So they're in fierce competition over there, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, over here, we're like, no NFC.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just remember it was so funny how long other Android phones had NFC and how like this niche community around
The
NFC
tags.
was built up with the little tags. And you could
Samsung
be like,
tags,
every
yeah.
time I get in my car, I like tap it and it goes into auto mode and navigates home and plays the song I like and turns on the heater at home, like all this stuff.
I loved that.
And like the iPhone never had NFC. And when it finally got the NFC chip, that
Only
whole community
Apple
was
Pay.
like, what can we do with it? It's like, oh no, it's just there for Apple Pay. Like, God, why?
yeah.
Well, now you
That's
could do
tough.
things with it with like shortcuts and
Yeah.
stuff. But
A few more. It's all
It's a
somewhere in
hassle.
Apple's ecosystem.
Yeah. So a few really amazing quotes from this. There was this quote that someone said, looking at it with hindsight, I think going forward, we need to set a stake in the ground for what features we think are good enough for the consumer. I would argue we're already doing more than what would have been good enough a few years ago. It would be really hard to regress our product features year over year. So someone at Apple is saying, we've actually we already have so much market dominance that we're actually giving you too many new features. We should slow down, and I actually wish we could take away features so that we could trickle feed you these features year over year.
Yeah.
But that would be really difficult. So going forward, we need to make sure that we don't innovate too quickly. It's
Yikes.
like, holy crap.
Just sending this stuff to each other in the group chat.
Guys,
Like,
stop emailing this stuff.
Buy your mom an iPhone.
No,
Okay,
that's
that was
in.
in the document.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. I think that quote is going to haunt Tim Cook for the rest of his career.
it so perfectly encapsulates everything, though. It's
Literally.
the question, the answer, and the way he grins while he answers. Like,
It's
all of it
5
is
words.
so perfect.
It's 5 words that are going to be on his gravestone.
It's so perfect for that. Yeah.
I feel bad for him for that though, because he was clearly just joking. Not really, but
not
joking.
really,
the only
bro.
reason it was a good joke is because the sliver
Yeah.
of truth is like, but actually,
Yeah.
though, like, it's the only way you can see these videos that your mom is sending you. Yeah.
yeah.
I would argue that when you're the CEO of a $1 trillion company, you lose your joking privileges. Like we have the right to take everything you,
You hit a
say
certain
Yeah,
seriously.
well,
Yeah,
you
at
can
that
make the
point.
joke, but we're allowed to take it way too seriously.
That's fair.
Yeah. If you have a market cap over with 9 digits, we don't listen to your jokes anymore.
Yeah.
We love
Probably
you, Tim.
a solid
but
rule. Yeah.
Nah.
Fair.
So, yeah.
You're paying enough people to clap for you at the events, anyways. You don't
No,
need us to.
If you rewatch that clip, I think it was from Code 2023. It's really awkward because as soon as he says "buy your mom an iPhone," everyone starts laughing like really awkwardly. Like everyone in the crowd is like,
And so we leave
Buy your mom an iPhone.
It's because he like technically addressed the elephant in the room, which is like, you guys have this huge walled garden, and I really would like to be able to do this without buying my mom an iPhone. So what are your thoughts? And you're the CEO of Apple, so you can't say anything other than just get your mom an iPhone. Like, what do you think I'm going to say? So it was kind of funny in the truth of how revealing that was.
And what precursed that statement was someone saying like, hey, so it's like very difficult to message between different devices, and it's really annoying. And
it's like him and his mom like
videos.
send blurry messages.
well, before he said the mom comment, he was just like, it's difficult to text. And Tim Cook just says, we haven't heard from our users that they want better interoperability with Android phones.
It's hilarious.
Specifically said our users, because of course, people that use iMessage are not the ones that are upset about this.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's going to go to his grave. This is going to take multiple years in the court system. They're going to appeal it. It's going to be a whole thing.
It's why I think I should start making a video about it, because it'll be evergreen.
You should.
Because the courts will take forever with this. And I also I think the analogy of, we've said the words walled garden so many times that I feel like it's worth like actually painting the wall in color so you can see exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, this is what happens when you're in the walled garden, and this is the wall you hit when you try to leave.
Yeah.
You can't get customized notifications on anything else, so you have another Apple thing. You can't get transparency mode on any of these others with one click, so now you have Apple's headphones too.
Yeah.
Now you have Apple's laptop too. Now you have Apple's messaging service too. And that, I think, is worth a video in some way, sort of trying to crystallize that.
Even the Vision Pro, it only works with Apple ecosystem apps that are like not available on Android phones.
I said it before it came out. I was like, when Apple makes a headset, it will be the one that works with the iPhone. And even though it doesn't connect to the iPhone, it's the one that has iMessage on it. It's the one that has FaceTime on it. It's the one that has the App Store. It's just exactly.
If you have an Android phone and you don't really use an Apple ID that much, the headset's basically worthless.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
you can still, I use an Android phone, and I can still use apps in the App Store. So like, there's that. If you don't want to use multi-platform apps, you can jump in, use Vision Pro apps in there.
Yeah.
But you're not going to use FaceTime. You're not going to use iMessage. You're not going to use probably their built-in email app or Safari, because you have bookmarks in Chrome, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, those walls still exist.
And I will say, as sort of a way to on that, that whole thing about iTunes growing because of Windows, it's kind of a valid point, because at the time Windows had 97% market share, right? So imagine Apple's trying to grow this new product. Apple's, I don't know, Garmin in this juncture. They're trying to grow this new product, but the platform that is completely dominating the market doesn't allow you to put out your application for people to actually use it. If iTunes couldn't have gotten put on Windows, would iTunes have like grown to the point where it was? You know?
If it couldn't have been put on Windows?
Yeah. Because it couldn't at first.
Yeah.
Like QuickTime didn't really work with Windows at first.
Do you think Apple like saw that lawsuit and understands like the line they have to skirt to kind of not turn into that, which now they pretty much have, but like
they're skirting it real close.
They're skirting it real close. I like seeing all of this and seeing all the things. If all 5 of these things change, all I think of this is like Apple won already. Like, what all of these things happened to put people in this garden, and they're in the garden already. They're not coming out with all of these things change, which I don't even think all of these things will change. But like, let's say every single thing happens for the DOJ here because it should happen.
Yeah. And some of the walls have holes in them now.
There's a couple holes 25 feet up,
Yeah.
and you can't buy a ladder on the App Store to get up there. But it's just like, it feels like all these things happen to stifle competition, and they stifled it enough to their winning in every aspect.
Yeah.
It's not going to change very much.
Depending on the implementation of RCS next year, I will very likely be switching to an Android phone. So,
which is why they will be doing everything in their power to implement it in a way that makes that less compelling.
Right.
I think even that, though, is such a small user. Like, it doesn't mean anything to them. The amount of people that would think that is absolutely nothing.
It does feel a little bit like too late.
It's too late.
I think your point is there are lots of people who already have the MacBook and the iPhone and the Apple Watch and everything, but there is a world where there are like 12-year-olds right now who are about to get their first 2 devices, and maybe they'll get the Garmin watch instead.
I guess that's what I should say. It's too late for probably maybe in like our lifetime or in like a couple generations. Whereas I'm sure when Microsoft got hit with this, people were like, well, they own 97% already. It's too late. But now we're at a point where it's like, oh, there is some competition.
Yeah.
So maybe they're hitting it now.
Gets her first phone.
Or when Lane's kids get their phones, they might have something different.
Yeah, I mean, when you're growing up as a kid and like you're a parent and you need to get a phone for your kid, you don't want to get them a new, like an iPhone 15 Pro and they're 9 years old,
why not?
Right?
Please don't.
Tim would say.
Tim would say that.
Buy your mom
Lane
an
needs
iPhone
a
15 Pro Max.
But if your kid's 9 years
Space
old
gray.
and all of their friends have iMessage and they're getting bullied for not having iMessage, they're going to go to you and be like, but I need the iPhone.
Dad.
And like, if that's not there.
Their dad's a nerd and it's going to have some very funny answers.
You're
going
gonna
to
love this one.
But no,
11.
sorry. That's again like super anecdotal.
If that barrier
Most
isn't
of them-
there and it's less like those kids can
Agreed.
get anything that their parents will give them. And also, you know, people tend to stick with brands for a long period of time throughout their entire life. I remember when the LG G8 Thin Q came out, and it was like,
Damn, throwback.
at least 3 generations into people just not buying LG phones anymore, really. And I was in Uber, and the Uber guy had it. And I was like, why did you pick this phone? I literally asked him.
Oh, I had an aunt. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was
Samsung
like,
train.
oh, I've just always used LG since like the flip phones. Like people
Yeah.
just stick with brands.
Yeah, I have the same thing. I have an aunt that was on. I swear I had this conversation at a wedding. It was like, I have a S6. Which Samsung should I get?
Yeah,
like
which
that's the question they're
Samsung?
asking.
Yeah.
Should I get the S20, S22? And that's all they're like. I don't really want to learn a new thing with the LG or the HTC. So like, which one should I get?
Yeah.
That's very valid.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, buy your Lane Android phone. Should be the new quote.
See, there won't be phones there.
Buy your kid
Only
an Android phone. Anyway, yeah. Like we said, it's going to take probably a few years for this to actually get through the courts. On the Vergecast, I was listening to their talk about this, and they made a bet whether it be over under 2030 by the time this gets resolved. Oh my God. Which feels pretty
I guess I got
relevant.
some time to work on this video then.
What gets resolved first, this or like all car manufacturers switching to EVs? Because 2030 is like when almost everyone's promised they'll stop doing
That's
gas
also when
cars.
it's supposed to be zero emissions from all tech companies, right?
Yeah, I'd
Or
say there's
net
at least
zero
legislation
carbon.
in place that would.
I bet you 2030 looks exactly like it does right now
For
I wouldn't
cars.
be shocked
for
at all.
all
For
the things
both.
we just talked about.
For everything. We do another podcast episode. We talk about the exact same things. We make more
2040.
bets. Yeah. Hey, thanks for watching this clip. Make sure you leave a like. Also, ring ding ding da ba aramba ba bum ba barumba ding ding. This is Crazy Frog.
Bam, bam.
Ba, ba.
It's BEM.
Yeah, bam, bam.
Somehow it's bam, bam. Oh, it's different every time though. Then it's ding ding. Then
Well, no,
it's
that goes
bam,
back
bam.
to bam, bam, yeah.
Then it's
Long form
Ding,
At
episode.
the bottom,
Yeah.
at the bottom
Da,
of the Google
da.
lyrics, it says translate to English.
it's the exact same. No, it's not. Da da translate to yes, yes.
Oh, it's Russian.
Yeah, da da.
Crazy Frog is Russian.
That's incredible.